everybody to Bobby's Cryptid Corner. My name is Jamie.
My name is Bree.
My name is Oligarch Tony.
Oligarch Tony. And welcome, everyone. We have a super exciting episode for you guys today. We are going to start off with a little bit of banter and let you guys know we're changing the format kind of slightly of how we do things on Bobby's Cryptid Corner. Everything we do is going to still stay the same. We're just kind of trying to segment it out a little bit. And one of the things that we're going to be doing is not showing as many comments on the screen because it does distract us a lot when we're trying to get through the episodes. So we're going to star a bunch of them. And then at the very end of the episode, we're going to have a whole thing where we go over people's comments and stuff like that. We will show some of them. It's not going to be completely comment free. But the biggest one is all of the super chats. We're going to save all of those for the end. And thank you guys personally, because sometimes it's a little bit hard when we're in the middle of talking to really thank you guys for doing that. So we're going to show it up on the screen, but we'll thank you guys at the end. So just know that we're not ignoring you. We're just in the middle of talking about UFOs and whatnot.
Yeah. Plus, we all have really bad ADD. So
I was going to say that.
Anytime we see something shiny, we're
oh. That really is it too. And then it's we want to thank everyone, equally and adequately. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we don't get to, and then other times we get so sidetracked. It's we really need some structure. We need some
a little bit of focus.
A little bit of structure.
Yeah.
So before we jump into all this, let's say hi to everyone in the chat. So we have Jedi Camper here. Hi, darling.
Hello.
We have Renee Cruz. Hello, my sweet
Love
angel.
her.
Wreakin' Havoc. Hello and welcome. And that's all who's in the chat for right now who said anything. I know there's more of you out there who just haven't commented.
Man, she mentioned the Nope movie. Oof. I'm dying to see that.
I haven't seen it yet.
Me either. Bobby is the only one of us who has seen it, and he's not here.
Oh, he has?
Yeah. He says he has lots of comments to make. He can't wait for all of us. I think that we all need to see it probably by next episode, maybe. And so that could be our beginning banter, would be our comments on Nope.
Nope movie.
Yeah, we actually got a message from Aaron from the Black Triangle. I always forget his name because it's 1111, but it's the Black Triangle podcast.
Productions.
Do you remember him?
That, yeah.
Productions?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He asked me if we've seen it, and he said that they really did their research on the film, and so he's hoping that once we watch it, we can have him on to kind of discuss
chit-chat about
the real stuff about it. Yeah, and
that'd be a vibe.
Compare our thoughts on what's real and what's not. And I love that they're doing this, and that I know it's going to be a hit movie because they all are, but I don't know. I just hope that more people become more excited about stuff like this.
Oh, absolutely.
Sometimes it takes a really cool movie for people to actually think about something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We're so influenced by pop culture. It's insane.
Love it.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. All right, Bree, why don't we get into our episode then? What are we talking about this week?
We're doing Dyatlov Pass.
Yes, we are.
We've done it in the past. We've done it on other podcasts. We've done it from all sorts of places. And we are deep diving into it again because I feel like this one never gets enough attention that it deserves. The story goes so deep and so crazy that you have to look at it 500 times because every time we look at it, my opinion of what I think happened changed.
That, and I feel like we've never put all of this together before. We've discussed it, but I don't think that we've been able to offer as much detail as we will today. Mm-hmm. When we were on JoJo's show, we just kind of brushed over it. And this is we're diving into the snow.
Yeah, can I just say I'm really enjoying my green boots. Right here in my yellow jacket.
Your yellow jacket? Okay, so automatically I died because I'm the only one here that decided that I was going to wear a tank top and shorts to the snow.
Quite honestly, it would have been more on point if you would have had all of us missing random pieces of clothes, like one boot on.
Like one boot.
Because low-key, your short sleeve and shorts make sense for the story.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay, that was hard to find. But also, I was just thinking, you know what? I'll sacrifice myself for the group. Maybe the whole group can stay alive if I just sacrifice myself. Yeah, exactly.
So I was thinking about this yesterday, and I was like, this kind of reminds me, the show American Horror Story, where they take like all these urban legends.
Oh, I'm obsessed with American Horror Story and American Horror Stories, which is out right now. Yes. Love it.
Well, this kind of reminds me of Russian.
Ooh, drink. That's right. We forgot to mention our drinking word is Russia.
Russian. Anything of it.
Anything that starts with an R. I'm just kidding. Wait, so what are you saying? It sounds like what?
Like American Horror Story. Like it's something.
It sounds like a version, like you would see it. Yeah.
Yeah. There's been so many movies and shows about this that I think the real story kind of gets lost because everybody sees like one or two documentaries on it, and then they see like there's 7 movies or 7 TV specials about it, and they kind of get the fiction mixed up with what they've actually found out about it.
Well, and I think that what happens with this case too is all of these movies and books and things like that all have different conclusions and endings, and so it starts to misconstrue what people think actually happened there. Like, the more and more that we've dug into the story, the first time we looked into it, we were like, oh my God, aliens are involved. But now I'm so far from an alien theory that I'm just like, it's not even on my mind this episode.
Right.
Man, so obviously we already said we're talking about Russia.
Do it.
In the Ural Mountains. And I'm going to ruin most of these names.
Oh,
They're
we're not
hard, like
really
Sverdlovsk Oblast. Yeah, exactly. But we all know that Russia has a deep climate for snow, and it's not California weather over there.
No,
very harsh.
It's very north.
Very north. The mountain is actually called by the locals the Mansi tribe. It's known as Death Mountain.
Don't you just love that? So we are starting in 1959. We're going to go through like a little bit of a timeline here.
Love it.
So it starts with these 10 students from the Ural Polytechnical Institute, which is now the Ural Federal Institute. And they plan to go on this huge expedition. And what's interesting about this, considering what happened to them, is each of them were considered grade 2 certified hikers. And once they completed this expedition, they would then get their grade 3 certificate, which was the highest at the time.
Yep. And it's important to note that a couple of them were like officers in the military, and the war had just ended. So they were
one of them, who was the oldest of all of them, was who fought in World War II.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Okay, so I can't think of his name off the top of my head. We will look at it. But he was the only one that the crew didn't initially know.
Yeah,
he was added like last. Now, if he wasn't like a war hero, because I know there were many stories about him of some of the really brave things that he had done, then I would have maybe raised a little bit suspicion with that. But it sounds like he was really your typical like true veteran that just wants to help people, and even though they didn't know him, he didn't mean any harm.
Yeah, very much like a fatherly presence is what a lot of them described as, like family, like very much like wanting to take care of everyone, like that stern father, like I look out for everyone kind of feeling.
Ooh.
Sure, just do that.
So we have the journals of the crew, and we also have photographs from a camera that they took with them. This is the group here. And what's very interesting here is that all of them were in their 20s besides the one. This is it can't be Seaman, but it looks like Semyon. Now we make it sound French. Semyon. Oh, Samuel.
And it was, it was probably like, Samuel.
But that it's kind of sad that they're all in their 20s. However, I think it's cool that a whole group of 20-year-olds were this experienced and hiking and
not only that, but this is what they were
expeditions.
This is what they were going to school for. This is literally what they spent their free time doing, was doing this. So I know Second Star Survival right here said that their tactics were not very well thought out, but they really were, actually. That's the thing you have to understand. These were very experienced hikers at this point. They might have not had military gear. Some of the gear that they did have was standard military issue, like their tent. Their tent was actually 2 tents sewn into one, and they were military grade. So it's not that they had a lack of experience by any means. This group was not inexperienced at all.
Yeah. So this woman right here that's 22 at the bottom
left
right here.
Right, yeah.
Zendaya.
Let's call her Zendaya.
Okay, I like Zendaya.
She looks like she could peel a fucking potato with her nails. Like,
yeah, for sure. Like, these are tough-looking individuals. Like, you have to remember, this is, I'm going to say it real quick, Russia, so go ahead and drink. Russia is a harsh environment in general, so it's not like these people were pussies or pansies.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hell no. Hell no. So this is the group of 10 here. These lovely people, rest in soul. Rest in soul. Rest in peace. So starting January 5th, the group arrives by train. In the northern province of Severodvinsk.
That was pretty decent.
That was good. That was good.
So they all hop on a truck and they head towards the last inhabited village there, the last bit of civilization in that area. So this is a group of them. There's all of them in here, but they're just so tight that you can barely see all their faces. Mm-hmm. But I think this is a great picture because it's just another photograph that I think shows that the group was tight. Like, they're a bunch of friends. Mm-hmm. They weren't like strangers going on a trip where you don't know who you can trust or not. Like, this is like their clique.
Mm-hmm.
And they just look so happy. It's so sad.
They really do. This was an exciting trip for them. This was them coming towards the end of their certifications and stuff. Like, the end of this, they were going to finish their certification. This was supposed to be a joyous moment.
Well, yeah, and you got to figure, like, the country just came out of war and everything, so everybody's coming down off of that heightened alertness, and they're just, this is like a relaxing, they're doing something that they want to do.
Relaxing.
One of them's an inventor. You know, they're going out there as a group of friends, and they're just going to have a good time doing what they love to do.
Want to have a good time.
Yeah, so this is a picture of them there at the village. They basically just chill there. They're trying to eat some food and rest up before they leave, and they're on their own. Out there in the rolling mountains of snow.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
See, they're like, I love you.
It was just so much fun. Look at this.
Goodbye,
they were so nice.
They're like, we live in a winter wonderland. And
yep, exactly.
So one day into the trip, we have Yuri decides to stay behind for health reasons. He has some issues with his knees. He has rheumatoid arthritis and a congenital heart defect. And they were acting up, so he decides to wait there in the village. And before the group leaves, they say that they are going to send notice to him, and they should be no later than February 12th that they've reached the next destination, so that he can, either catch a train or whatever to come and meet them for the celebration of the next thing that they're going to do.
Yep.
So that's why in the picture, in the first lineup of everyone, I put the one that got away, because even though at the time he was probably really disappointed that he had to go back. I mean, because this is like their trip of a lifetime. So he was probably really heartbroken about that and sad. And in the long run, it saved his life.
I think he had a lot of survivor's guilt as well, because one of the things that happened to him after all of this is he ended up being kind of like the spokesperson for the group, and like started a foundation and would like go up there several times, like investigating and looking into things and stuff like that. He definitely kept their story alive all the way up until his death in, like, I think 2016 is when he died.
Well, he lived a long time.
I think it was 13. It was 13, but still he was like, he was old by then. And that's a long time to go without these people. I mean, wow. So this was Igor Dyatlov, and he was basically the one that then took charge of the group here, and he was considered the most experienced. That's what the group of people thought of him, that he was like really a natural leader, that he didn't have any other outside hobbies other than this. It was like he slept, and just breathed being out there and pushing themselves to the limit and being out there. He looks happy.
So I think Igor is the guy who was the inventor.
Oh.
And we'll get into this as we start to talk about the theories of what happened.
Yeah.
But little bit of a spoiler, he invented a heating unit for a tent, and they were trying it out while they were out there.
Wow, that's crazy.
I told you, every time we look into this, we find out more and more shit about it.
Yep.
Yeah. And because I think there's just more people, more family members that are coming out too and talking about them and giving little snippets of information that at the time was kind of kept a secret, or not a secret, but this wasn't an event that Russia wanted to
Do it.
plaster, across for people to know about.
No, absolutely not. And especially not after World War II.
Yeah.
Doesn't he look like one of the 7 dwarves?
Dwarves?
Like, I think it's what is it, Sleepy or Dumpy?
Dopey. Yeah.
He looks like Dopey.
For sure. Very dopey vibes.
That's crazy.
And so we have all of these pictures and stuff because most, if not all of their belongings were found. All of them.
Yeah, pretty much everything, right?
This camera was, found in the tent. So, like, even just from this picture, it's like, goddamn, like, y'all are really out there doing it. Like, no, not into that.
Yeah, so.
Not at all.
Well, there's a helicopter.
Yep. So before you jump ahead, let me just say this, Bree. So what happened when the 12th came along, and Yuri still hadn't heard from anyone, and so he waited a few days until like the 20th, and that's when him and the family kind of went forward to the authorities, and they were like, "Hey, they were supposed to be here like 8 days ago, and we have not found them yet." And so what ended up happening is a search group went out, which was then also followed by the army and the military police forces coming involved once they found the bodies.
Yep. And just like a hint at the way that the world used to be back then, some of these pictures, like if you go back to the last one.
Oops. Hold on. I'm spazzing. This one?
So this looks like a really miserable thing to be in. Like, that's a blizzard. And somebody's just like, oh, let me get a picture of the guys.
Yeah, this was not like they were having an awful time. Like they were up there for this purpose. They also did find diaries of them, which I'm sure we'll go over some of them too. But they were keeping track of things like what the weather was like, and they were saying it was windy. There at one point, the diary even says that there was enough wind that it was blowing the snow off of the trees, making it look like it was snowing when it wasn't.
Yes.
What's also interesting is in some of the diaries, though, like, they say weird shit. Like, it was actually kind of a warm night tonight. I'm like, what?
Yeah,
I read that a lot, so maybe they're
20s.
just used to this. Again, probably where Russia is, like, on the globe. Like, that has something to do with that. But, so, like, yes, it was freezing and cold, but they also seemed like they were acclimated a little bit to
These
this
kind of
conditions. Yeah. So,
So-
yeah, this is the helicopter.
The helicopters came to find them.
When I was in the Army, I had a fellow E5 at the time who was from Russia. Drink. And he had permanent like rosacea where his cheeks were red. But it was because he worked and lived in Siberia and it was so cold that like no matter how cold it got wherever we went, he was just like, this is fine.
It's fine. Yeah. Okay, so I kind of have like the opposite thing. So I wear sweaters everywhere I go. I wear long sleeve shirts when I live in Vegas where it's 150 degrees and everyone makes comments about it, but I'm just like, I'm always cold. Like I moved here because it's warm and I'm cold all the time and everyone thinks I'm batshit crazy and I'm just like, it's not that hot.
Right.
Oh my God, I'm always hot. Yeah. So, it isn't until February 26th that they find what is left of their tent. So it's believed that whatever took place at this event, whatever horrible event it was that led to the chaos, happened between February 1st and the 3rd. And that's based off of obviously going back and doing like the autopsies and stuff, but then also when you correlate it to their journals, the timeline, that's what it adds up to be. And this is like what is this, like sticks and stones? Like this is crazy.
And when you say chaos, it's like chaos and then not chaos and then chaos. And that's what I think makes this story very confusing because what they stumble upon in is what you see in this picture here is what's left of the tent. And it looks like it's torn down and there's nothing left of it. So something horrible happened, something rampaged through there. But in reality, because it just took them so many days to find them, the weather conditions were there was not a lot of snow falling. Let me just start there by saying that because it'd be a lot more covered than it is and they wouldn't have found so many things as they did. And the wind really ravaged this area. So it made it look like something else had happened there.
Right. And so what you just said, like it wasn't covered, right? Because of the wind.
Yep, right there. Look at that.
Really plays into an explanation that we're going to talk about and why it's total bullshit.
Exactly.
Yeah, and like that just reminded me. So the way that I did this is I'm gonna go through some of the things found right now. After that, we're gonna get into the conspiracies and show some of that. But what I forgot to show for the end at the conspiracies, which I'm an idiot, but just pay attention to like this right here. This what do you call that? The ski. What's that pole? Ski pole.
Yeah, the pole.
So, which was up at the last photo of the group setting up their tent for that night. And if you can see now, it is still there.
It's still there. Yeah.
So that is interesting for one of the official reasons as to what happened to them. I mean, it's just like, wow. Okay.
Their skis are still standing up.
Their skis. Well, some of those skis are probably from the investigators.
No, so that's one of the things. So the investigators were, they
Did
claim.
they fly in?
Well, yeah, they flew in, but the investigators also claim that they didn't disrupt a lot of the stuff when they were taking pictures and stuff. Like they swear up and down, they were like, we didn't move anything, we didn't add anything. Like these pictures are accurate of what it is when we showed up.
So all those skis that we're seeing are their skis, their cross-country skis.
Supposedly, yes.
Well, holy shit, that makes it even more weird.
That makes it a little more complicating.
It does,
that doesn't make sense. That wouldn't be okay. We'll have to go back to this picture when we discuss one of the, like I said, one of the reasons here. So the tent. This is probably one of the biggest things that raised the conspiracy here, is that the tent was cut from the inside. So obviously they're in the tent instead of like normal getting out or whatever, they cut from the inside. Like they were in a hurry to go somewhere.
Well, and here's the thing too. So it was found out that it was ripped from the inside because a woman who worked for the police department laundry services clearly identified that the damage came from inside because she was like a laundry expert, and she showed where there was actually marks where someone had taken a knife and tried to cut through and it didn't go through all the way, so they moved to another location. And all of these facts were originally overlooked in the initial investigation.
Yeah, they were left out initially. Yep.
So whatever this hurry was that left them like cutting it out from, the inside of their tent, jumping out, most of them not dressed properly or had just one sock on, no shoes, just weird things like that. But then when we have a picture of their footprints, it looked like they were walking in pairs, like side by side. It was not a running situation where they're like,
It was said that it was almost within like a single file, that they were very organized as they were walking down as a group together. And what also gives me the biggest red flags when it comes to these footprints is you're talking how many days later. This was the 26th of February. This happened somewhere between the 1st and the 3rd. And you're telling me that there is enough wind and snowfall to have taken down the rest of their tent, to have covered bodies, but you can clearly see the footprints? That makes zero sense.
That doesn't make
not only
sense.
Footprints, but like overlapping footprints. And this is another one where the investigators had said, we didn't walk that path. No one ever stepped in it, but there's no way to guarantee that investigators didn't walk that same path, because when they originally showed up and they were looking, they had no idea that these people were dead. So they weren't treating it as like a homicide investigation. They were just searching for somebody.
And the thing is, there were no footprints coming into this, so everything was going out. And
that plays into another theory that we'll see later.
Yes, and you can tell like a footprint that has been frozen over and iced over compared to somebody who was just walking through there. So if they saw that and they were like, well, all of these are clearly not us because we know what it looks like.
Well, and what's interesting about it too is they say that they found 9 sets of footprints that they saw with their eyes during this investigation, that specifically 9 people left, and they saw that they could tell that some people were wearing boots or maybe a single shoe or just socks or barefoot. They could literally tell the difference between the footprints.
So here's our little tent here. There's a jacket, a flashlight. Here's just some of the cuts. The ski pole still hanging out there. It's just weird. It's a crime scene for sure.
Well, and not just that, but what's very interesting about this too is everything was pretty much left inside of the tent. They didn't take a lot of stuff with them when they ran out. But one of the things that they overlooked that was literally sitting in the middle of the tent was like sweaters, or like their shoes were right by the holes that they cut.
Their gear.
So it literally didn't make any sense to them to run out of their tent in that fashion and not take anything with them. Anything. Well, that's not true. Some of the people did take random things. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the camera that we're getting all these pictures from was left inside of the tent. So tent is over here, and these were the footprints were. The bodies were in this whole area, and the pass is over here.
Right. And the bodies weren't all found together. Yeah, we're about to get into some photos of some deceased people. So if you are
squeamish,
don't be here.
And I feel like the first set isn't as bad as some of the other ones I decided to go more in depth for, but I have the pictures.
Some of them the bodies are a little bit older and they're not as scary looking, but some of them they look very fresh because these people died of hypothermia and they were frozen, and they are terrifying.
They are terrifying.
YouTube, this is purely for educational purposes. Do not take this video down, you assholes.
Yes, we're warning the crew, okay?
Yeah.
All right. So now we can look at some of these very sad bodies.
So some of these first bodies that you're seeing, these are the first 5 bodies that were all, after the autopsy, decided to have died of hypothermia. All of them except one of the people had a small crack in the skull, but it wasn't.
I am going over that.
Fatal.
I'm going over that.
Oh, okay, perfect. Which that was just within the first 5 of that.
Right.
Because I don't think the first 5 are that weird.
I only picked like a few of them. I read through all of the autopsy stuff, so I only picked some that I thought had like certain things that pointed out, you know. But I mean, this sucks. They're literally like face down here. I mean, this is just awful.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine that if you die of hypothermia and then you're in the ice, wouldn't that kind of preserve the body a little bit more and slow down the decaying process a little bit?
It does to some of them.
Yeah.
Do you have some of those photos where it's more visible, the people? This one is a scary one because he's like that. He's face backwards, like climbing up a wall almost, and that's how he died like that. And that's the older gentleman.
Yeah,
I thought it was the woman.
Soldier.
No, that's the
soldier.
soldier.
I don't remember.
Yeah, that's the soldier. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just, oh my God, just awful. Awful. There's
So
like
you see,
30
they're kind
bodies
of
here.
they're under like some of them are under about a foot of snow,
Mm-hmm.
and that's
This one is in a river. This is right. He's literally along the water on that picture.
Like that poor leg.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
just the leg.
just the leg, like, oh my God, I can't imagine dying this way. However, we don't even know what happened to them, but just based off of
Right.
the pictures, dying like this in this like this way, it's just awful.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And you got to figure freezing to death. I mean, they say that drowning and burning to death are the two worst ways to die. But I mean, freezing to death, you just kind of fall asleep and don't wake up. Right?
Do you have more pictures of the dead people?
I will.
need
Let me
more
see.
dead
What's
people.
Okay.
more
Because because I
Give
feel like
me
I have
more
one
dead.
that you don't have. That's terrifying.
No, probably not.
We'll see.
Is it in here? Is it in the brand?
I just put in the brand. Yeah.
No, I haven't.
And
You do?
We're gonna talk about like some of the things that they found.
Yeah. I just wanted to say, like, this tree in particular, there's a picture here because the branches were, like, torn down. Like, they had tried to climb up the tree.
Mm-hmm.
And there was also some trees that looked like someone had fallen from it as well.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Like
There we go.
this.
We're getting to the more scary stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just not cool.
Mm-mm.
No. So now now I wish I didn't add Bobby in any of these.
I know. Not here.
Because he's obviously not going to be an investigator gadget in this episode, but oh well.
Right.
I trimmed your beard for you because I thought
You
that you
did.
looked nice with that length.
Oh, thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, so now we can get into the theories, some of the explanations, and a lot of the conspiracies. So the first thing that the people tried to kind of, where some people try to put the blame, is the Mansi tribe. There's a tribe in that area, and it is written multiple times in the journals that they're coming across all the writings and stuff on the trees. And so some people are saying, oh, maybe they lingered in an area that maybe was like
shouldn't
sacred or
have, yeah.
something.
Right.
Yeah, like they crossed that line.
But none of that makes any sense, though, because you don't have any evidence of a struggle that went on in that tent area. You don't have those other sets of footprints coming in or
Yeah,
out
you
of
have
that
no
area.
incoming footprints.
And,
Yeah.
and if you look deep into the lore of these people, at the end of the day, they were actually terrified of this area because something in their lore happened that was very similar to this, where a group of hikers went up there and they went camping and then they ended up dead and they all had very mysterious deaths. It was like they had trauma on the inside but not the outside. And that was like the lore of these people. So it's not like they were really hanging out in that area. They did call it Death Mountain.
Right. And I don't know if we've covered this, but Russia. We have not said that word for a while, so everybody drink.
Sorry, drink.
Moving along.
I pretty much copy and pasted one of the transcribed journal entries because this is the very last journal entry. And I highlighted just a part where I feel like the Mansi tribe for sure was not a threat. So this is from Dyatlov himself, from Igor. He says, got back on the Mansi trail. Up to now, we are following a Mansi trail on which not so long passed a hunter with deer. Yesterday it seemed we stumbled upon his resting stop. Deer didn't go any further. The hunter took the beaten trail by himself, and we are following his footsteps. So they saw someone in the Mansi tribe. They didn't interact negatively whatsoever. It was like, oh, there's another person here. It wasn't like, oh, shit, he's eyeing us, or, you know what I mean? Like it was very evident that the Mansi tribe, maybe certain members here and there, hunters, would come and go, and there was no ill will towards them.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting because it's like, had a surprisingly good overnight. Air is warm and dry. It's like, what? What do you mean?
Warm.
Mm-hmm.
Warm and dry. And then they're just talking about like just what they're gonna do, how they just have to go up through the valley, and they were gonna bring like a stove with them to cook some stuff, which is interesting because in the tent there is none of that stuff in there.
Well,
But
the stove-
he's just talking about the plants.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I just feel like just off of some of the things in the journal entry, I don't think that it makes sense that all of a sudden someone in the Mansi tribe came back to just like slaughter them all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that stove is actually the one guy who's an inventor. That is his like stove heating unit for a tent in that I was talking about earlier.
Oh,
like,
and that's
these
who placed the
temperatures.
journal entry.
Yeah, and it's like a propane powered, like what we would have a Coleman grill thing with a propane bottle now. That's what he had almost 100 years ago.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. So here is where Jamie is talking about that it just seems like people are kind of playing a numbers game here with the number 9. And so they had this folklore in the Mansi tribe that there were already 9 Mansi tribe members that had died out there in that area. And then there was also a plane crash not far from there where 9 people died in 1991. So it's like it's just the whole area is kind of a huge mystery. I believe in numbers. I'm a number person. But I just think it's weird. Everything here is like, I don't think that if the Mansi tribe was worried about this area because of their folklore and because they already had members of their tribe die and they was known as Death Mountain, that they would go out of their way to track them down and kill them when they had already been seeing them around.
Yeah.
And yeah, that just doesn't.
It's like if you know the lore of the area, you'd be like, oh, well, you're going to die anyways, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to know like what the ley lines through there are.
We should do that. Yeah.
See,
And,
yeah,
like,
see the
it's-
numbers.
its proximity to the Tunguska explosion. Like, there's a lot of really weird shit that happens in rural Russia.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Oh, drink, yeah.
Oh.
All right, Bree, tell us about who this is.
This is just the few that I picked out here. This is Yuri Doroshenko.
Yes, good. Very well.
I will say that every single person on the autopsy has tremendous cuts and bruises and abrasions, and I mean, it's overwhelming to the point where I felt like it was just overkill to put that on every single slide, and I'm not going to drop an entire list of where every part on the body is. So this is a great picture that they did that, and it's just showing like where the major trauma was on some of these people. And then this is the poor dead body of such person, went from alive to unalive. The odd thing about this autopsy was that he had his short sleeve on. He was wearing shorts,
Oh, God.
2 different socks, and the left sock was burned. No shoes, of course, and the hair on the right side of his head was burned.
Ooh.
his ears, nose, and lips were covered in blood, but coming out of his mouth was a gray liquid.
Foam,
and on the right side of his cheek was gray foam.
And
out of his mouth?
Out of his mouth.
Yeah.
And when the investigators saw this, the only thing they could really think of is that when he was dying or something, his chest was being pressed on. That's the only way this kind of gray fluid would have been coming out of his mouth. So it didn't make sense.
Yeah,
for
that's
him to have it.
okay.
No.
Usually, like gray, if you see like a gray liquid, it's coming out of the ears, and that connotates like a brain injury or a spinal right at the base of the brain injury. But you don't
like cerebral fluid that comes out.
It's extremely rare to see it out of the mouth. Like that's a major traumatic, impact.
Well,
to do
yeah.
that.
And like Second Star was saying, like, when it gets cold, things are brittle and break. So of course, like tips of fingers and things like fell off. But you have to understand what's important of what she said is there was dried blood. And the only reason there would have been blood in those areas is if he would have still been alive or actively bleeding and dying. So that just kind of clues into what was going on before he died, because obviously that blood wasn't there afterwards. It had to have happened when said trauma was going on.
Yeah, and he would have had to have been exposed completely to the atmosphere for it to bleed, which matters for one of the explanations.
So the livor mortis spots were located at the back of the neck and the torso of all the like extremity areas, and so that doesn't make any sense unless basically what that means is that couldn't have happened with the way that the body was found.
Right.
So that means that the body was moved after he had died and the blood stopped circulating. So that is very, very strange because now we have the position of the body not being in the position that he had died.
But I will say to that effect, though, and one of the reasons that this could be, one of the things that happened is they allude to the fact that some people may have died sooner than others, and they went and the people who were alive collected some of the clothing off of the people who were deceased. So there was like some of them who were found like under a tree, and it looked like they had tried to start a fire or something. Yeah, and then like their bodies were there, but pieces of clothing were ripped off. And at one point, part of the group actually tried to walk back to their original tent and died along the way. And those were the ones who had like the other people. They assumed were the other people's clothing that they had taken off.
Can I just say, this androgynous person here, is this what the Catholic Church currently uses to where did the Father touch you?
Yeah, a little bit probably. Like, no, they use the doll still. Like, they have a doll. They're like, where on the doll?
Make sure when you leave that hate comment, you tag me. I did it. I said it.
Okay, here is Igor Dyatlov. Many more issues here towards the face. He, of course, didn't have any shoes. He had different socks. He had a vest that was a fur vest and not buttoned, which would be weird if you're trying to stay warm. He, of course, had many bruises and abrasions. The tip of his nose was missing. And he was also missing an incisor in his lower jaw.
See, that's weird.
And I hate seeing the before and after, but I would like someone to do that at my funeral. If I have like an open casket, just make me look how I look naturally dead, and then have a side-by-side picture.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I believe
Like
It's powerful. It's powerful.
Yeah.
Powerful.
It's so powerful.
This is
Rustum.
important. This one's like a really important one too.
Yeah.
Rustum. Massive blunt force to the head. Massive. I mean, bad. Again, that the liver mortis spots were on the top surface of the body. So again, meaning that he was also another person where he died before he died in a different position that they found him. So it almost appears as if he died and then someone came and then like flipped over the body. So he was head down.
Yeah, but he most certainly died more violently than a lot of the others.
Than a lot of them, yeah.
And this kind of leads to
wait. I was like...
And the fist also, in the autopsy report, the way that the abrasions were on his fist is that it was a defense wounds. Like, that's exactly what it would look like if, say, like, you're in a fist fight with someone and you're
it's called a fighter's bite. Where, like, if you punch somebody in the face and you hit their tooth cuts your
knuckle or whatever.
Knuckles. That's called like a fighter's bite. And but those wounds are.
I would say he was the most outwardly violent death, but then you also do have somebody. I don't know if you have the slide, Bree, the one who he had major chest fractures.
I have 2 people with major chest fractures.
Okay, then I'll wait.
Tony, what were you gonna say?
That was as far as I went with that. Like, it was like, so his injuries to me feel like he was the focus of an attack and he was fighting back. And a lot of the others are kind of like they're trying to hide from whatever attacked him and trying to get back to the tent because they know they're going to die if they don't get back to where their gear is and stuff, and he kind of sacrificed himself to stand up. This is the narrative that I'm building with it as I've read into it and looked at the injuries and stuff. I think something really fucking weird happened here, and it makes no sense what the official explanation is.
Oh yeah, no, and like the missing spot on his nose was not from I'm sorry, not him. Sorry, wrong person. I was going to say a lot of the abrasions and stuff, they were saying it didn't really add up with frostbite. Some of the situations do, but the parts where there's missing, like the last one with I think it was Igor Dyatlov, that isn't. It didn't line up with frostbite. So it wasn't like he got frostbite and then the tip of his nose fell off. It was almost like it was maybe bit off or ripped off or cut. Yeah. And that's another thing with most these marks.
Yeah, the things that we're like commenting on were and that they're highlighting in this were things that didn't make sense with hypothermia.
Right.
And a lot of the cuts and stuff that they had, I read a lot that they were almost like precise straight lines or like precisely angular lines.
It's so weird because like if you took certain aspects out of like this involving people, there's the same things you kind of see in cattle mutilation.
No, for sure. I was thinking that.
The same things you see with strange lights, and it's like the perfect storm of all the weirdest shit you could ever think of, and it just happened to happen to 9 people, what, 70, 80 years ago?
Yeah, exactly.
Out there in Russia.
Out in Russia. Drink.
Ooh.
This poor lady. Oh, Lord. I feel so fucking bad for her. I'm going to call her Linda, even though that's not her name. It's a little bit of a... But to me, she's Linda. She's Linda Dubbin. Okay?
Love it.
She's, to me, like one of the saddest of all of them. Her eye sockets are completely empty. She has no eyeballs. Her tongue is missing. All of the soft tissue that would be in the eye socket around, in the eyes, the eyebrows, the upper lip, all missing. Her ribs were broken.
Before you could, her ribs were broken. You know that one meme, TikTok.
Her arms were cut off. Her legs were cut off.
Okay, but before you continue too, because I know a lot of people are gonna be like, "Oh, frostbite." No. Frostbite does not take your eyeballs away. And specifically, they found inside of her stomach a bunch of her blood, which suggests that her tongue was removed while she was still alive.
So she ingested it.
So she had severe head trauma, obviously. But yes, absolutely not frostbite. There's nothing in here that's frostbite. And one of the weirdest things is that the sweater she was wearing, which they realized was not even hers after all, but so it appears that she might have taken it from someone else, maybe that had already died. But the sweater that she was wearing tested positive for radiation.
Yes.
And it was so weird and random that they decided to test their clothes for radiation. None of the bodies had radiation on them, but like how random and why in the world
to test it? Yeah.
Well, they probably
test it for radiation. It's just so weird, though. It's not a standard practice at all.
Considering the time in the 50s, like the U.S. had already dropped 2 nuclear bombs on Japan, and nobody really knew what nuclear radiation did. So they were probably just being careful because they're like, is this like a U.S. weapon that we don't know about that they've tested out here? So they might have done that just out of pure fear that the U.S. developed a weapon that caused like this psychotic break and people to like die.
And that's also one of the theories that we have.
Yeah. So I know that we're kind of saving our comments towards the end, but just because I don't want to have to go back for paranormal pixie. So the only reason why it's definitely not ravens, buzzards, or eagles is because she was found under the ice, and it wasn't a long time between then. Like she wasn't in a position. Right? She wasn't in the position where a bird can fly by. Not to mention exposed. It was like bloody cleaned out. It wasn't like pecking at an eyeball and then moving on. It was everything. The soft tissue. I mean, the entire eye socket is empty. It's like imagine taking an ice cream scooper to your eyeball and just taking your sweet time, just pulling out, just emptying that fucking socket. Like that's this poor girl, in my opinion, I think had it worse than everybody. And I just feel so bad for Linda Dubbin. And, like, where are the boobs? Because I thought they were here. I guess they are there. But then, like, that also kind of looks like...
I don't know.
Well, they're a bit frozy.
Frozy!
She's got frosty titties.
Oh, my God. Oh, man. Poor Sem Yon. The one that was flopped over like this. Also eyeballs missing. Again, with the tissue completely gone. All the soft tissue around the eyeball. The bone was exposed. He had a wound on the right side of his skull that also had the bone exposed. And his poor chest is, I mean, look at it.
Crushed. That's a common theme.
And so that's the thing. So his autopsy very specifically says that the force that required such damage to him would have been comparable to like a car crash, or he was in sort of some like very like high level of pressure. So this isn't something that was like somebody didn't push him. He wasn't like, this was a very serious trauma that happened to his body.
And what's weird is, like, the car crash thing, I read that for all of them that had the same chest, like collapsing almost, that, like, all of them had that. So it wasn't like, or the ones that had the chest issues, they were all like that. So it was almost like the same, it had to be the same instant, or the same cause if it's all the same. You know what I mean? I think I'm making sense. I don't know.
It's a pattern of injury. So like if you look at this right here, so you see what ribs are broken and what ribs aren't broken. So if you hit a tree on, that would be this person's right side because of an avalanche, we'll just say an avalanche, push this person into a tree at a vertical, they hit the tree like this. All those other ribs would be broken too. And
the face bones,
would be broken. The fact that collarbone, which is the weakest bone in this group, isn't broken means something applied pressure specifically to that area to break those bones.
Like a Bigfoot sitting on his chest and scooping out the eyeballs.
Standing.
I'm gonna
pushing
say...
the pad of his foot into it.
The weird thing is I didn't come across like too many animals though. I keep
Because there aren't any.
seeing
I
these
know,
things
Second
about
Star
animals
Survival
and
is, like,
animals, and
so-
I'm like, bro, like I get it, but like no.
No, you don't understand. There weren't really animals in that area. It's not. There
Yeah,
wasn't like
it's-
fucking foxes and shit running around. There wasn't
We
bears.
still get
there wasn't.
distracted.
There was
That's okay.
some. There was some wildlife up there for sure, but in the time that it was up there, the 26 days or whatever it took them to find all the bodies, that kind of foraging from animals wouldn't have happened because they weren't in that area.
No, and so what you have out there is you probably have
hibernation
Arctic
season.
fox. It's high enough up so that you would have Arctic fox, maybe a couple other weird mammals, nothing big, nothing bigger than a fox.
Yeah, maybe some moose, and that's some people allege that it was a moose attack.
A moose, they would have.
We would have-
Moose would have fucked them up in so many.
It would have.
different
It would have
ways.
been so much more chaotic.
Different.
Yeah,
Different.
But that's one of the
Very
theories
different.
that somebody put forward was, it was there's moose up there, so maybe it was a moose. And moose isn't gonna eat fucking eyeballs.
No, they're not going to eat eyeballs. And the way moose attack things, they gorge. So you would have all these antler marks going in, and when you have a 1,400-pound animal with an 8-foot wide section of antler, you're going to have very different injuries than you see here. And
We
bears
would
are
see
hibernating.
puncture wounds probably.
Yeah, you'd see a lot of
antler
puncture wounds.
wounds.
Yep. Absolutely.
Like these were how the two, like the poor eye sockets. I mean, this looks like something you can buy at like a Halloween store. Like this to me looks like a Mr. Bones. And it just, the fact that it just decayed so rapidly that they really suffered.
And it shouldn't have decayed
no animal
with
tracks,
the
no.
temperature.
And I think it's important that we make comment to those two things, though. So there was no animal tracks that were found, and there was food and stuff that was inside the tent that was not touched. So if there was like a bear or something, why did it not take food out of the tent? Why did it only take the bodies?
Yeah,
Why did it only precisely scoop out eyeballs?
Yeah.
Or eyebrows?
Yeah.
Yep. Or
Again,
a tongue.
if it was pecked or fucked up, sure. But this looks like purposely scooped out.
a
No,
rusty
bears aren't like,
fork.
this is a delicacy. I'm going to take my time
I'm
on these
telling you.
eyeballs.
I'm telling you guys, this is like the first instance of human cattle mutilation, like where humans experience what cattle get with cattle mutilation. Like it's the same shit, right? They're missing their eyes, they're missing their tongues, they're missing like these weird fucking things.
Weird things, yeah.
I just had to show this because I think this is the greatest fucking setup of a joke ever. The eyeballs to see through winter.
That's a good one. Thank you.
Oh man. Okay, so 4 of those members though had what they're considering it, like they're calling it the den. So basically there was a member in the Mansi tribe that was out with his dog, and he found a tree that had a bunch of cut off branches with a sweater hanging down from it. There was just like random clothing there. And then they, upon like further investigation, they found this little den where they were hanging out at. Well, trying to keep like covered, right?
Warm.
So they're in a ravine. The 2 of them in the last picture, they were like back to back, like it looked like they were trying to keep each other warm. And so they walked over to the tree, cut down the branches, brought the branches over to build themselves like basically a little fort. But they could never find the knife that had cut down those branches in the area. And it just doesn't necessarily add up with them being so out of their mind.
Well, okay, so wait. Let's pause real quick, because I think one thing that we didn't talk about is like, so one of the things that they said, and they say that this happened, their official report is because it was an avalanche, okay?
Yes.
And during this avalanche, the reason that you have these people taking off their clothes and things like that is because there's a symptom during hypothermia where you actually think that you're really warm, so you start taking off your clothes. So these people were just like out of their mind with hypothermia. But people who were out of their mind dealing with hypothermia in that same way wouldn't have been building a den or trying to get back to their original tent. They would have been in their psychosis. Yeah. So it doesn't necessarily add up that these people were of sound mind enough to go ahead and build a den to take clothes off of other dead bodies to try to make it back to their original location.
Yeah, this is a lot of work that they did here to make themselves shelter. And to actually stay warm, that you can tell that how their bodies were, that they were trying to stay warm. So that kind of just like kicks that idea out of the park here.
And not far from the den, I believe right behind it, there is almost, there's a tree that looks like it was climbed up so that somebody could almost look up to try to see where their location was. And in that same eye line of that tree, that's the big tree that's on that map right there, you can see those 3 dead bodies like they were trying to get back. So someone had crawled up there like, okay, the tent is this way, and then they had perished along the way of traveling back to the tent. And I know this picture doesn't look like it's a super long distance, but this is a full mile distance they were away from their tent area.
Yeah, and that's miles are really long.
With a 30% slope on the mountain.
Yeah, a mile's a really far place. And I think it's important to say that the river was running when the body in the river was found.
Yes, and so actually with one of the bodies in the river, there was actually found a camera with one of the men. And it's part of the weird, like, okay, so they didn't take a bunch of shit, but why did this one dude take his camera? So was he sound enough to be like, something's happening, I can't grab shit, but I have to grab this? And what's most tragic thing, I think, is that all of the film was ruined inside of the river because of the water running through it, or they just never really showed us what was on it. But how is it that one of them was of sound mind enough to have caught that, where all the other cameras all the other cameras were left all the other cameras were left.
Fuck the shoes. Where's my camera?
They even found a flashlight along the way down to like where the bodies were, that they alleged that maybe one of the guys had grabbed and dropped on the way out. When they found it didn't work. But when they were at the tent, they found another flashlight that did work.
See, and this is why this story in particular has the, I guess, following behind it, you know, like the air of mystery behind it, is because none of this shit makes sense. Even when you talk to people who do like extreme survival shit and run around in northern Alaska and avoid polar bears and whatever.
Unless it's Second Star Survival. In that case, I don't think he agrees.
No, I think he's mad at us and he left. Sorry,
but like a lot of this stuff, when you put the story together, when you take the official story and then you take the notes and you take the pictures and you just those things and combine them together, you go, what the fuck?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like none of it, even if you had a bunch of morons who were out in the fucking woods together, which these people weren't, it still doesn't fucking make sense.
No.
Because they're making conscious decisions, so that like immediately gets rid of they're hysterical. Well, why did they build a shelter and try to start a fire? Well, they're hysterical.
And not only that, but it's like this event wasn't just one thing that happened and then bam. Like this was something that happened over several days, probably, of them fighting for their life, trying to get back where they originally were. So what was it that stopped them from getting back to where they were? You know what I mean? It seems like there's so much more going on than you realize.
Which is why they assume that it was an avalanche.
Yes, so they assumed that it was an avalanche, and that's why they cut out of the tent, because the avalanche was coming. They had to cut their way out. But none of that makes any sense. Number one, because the slope of the mountain is a 30% slope. And historically and mathematically, not too many mountains have landslide with that low of a slope on them. Also, that area is not historically known for landslides. Like, none of the people in the area have any like stories passed down of big avalanches in that area. And when talking to the Mensi tribe about the area, they also said the same thing, that avalanches aren't really a thing. And in 2019, the Russian government, go ahead and drink to that.
Drink.
opened back up the investigation to basically, like, they told everyone why they were doing it. They were basically going to go in and look at the statistics of avalanches, and they were going to do like 3D models and like AI models and stuff to prove that it was an avalanche that did this to them. And they did. They with their little math and their programs or whatever, they were like, oh, this is what it is. But none of it makes sense to me because there was no sign of an avalanche. And if there was an avalanche, why do you still see all the footprints?
Why do you see all of the ski, all of their
shit's still standing up?
Everything is still standing. I mean,
or the bodies would have been swept away, right? They wouldn't have been like running out like that. They would have literally been swept away,
right?
Which might have made a little bit of sense for some of their injuries, right? The avalanche comes down, they get caught in it, they're tumbling down into things, but that's not the scene that was there. They cut out of the tent and they walked away. So if it was an avalanche, it doesn't, the way the evidence and the footprints don't make sense with an avalanche in any capacity.
No, and I think most people call the avalanche theory bullshit. Like,
oh yeah,
I think even the Russians are just like, what? No, no, it wasn't that.
Yeah, it would have had to be that once this little ice sheet fell down, all of a sudden it just perfectly cracked and then like exposed everything underneath it.
Yeah.
Like what? No. If it was an ice slab, it would have instantly broken those ski thingamabobbers. Like, and the sticks that they had for the tent. Come on.
Yeah,
also, everything's fine.
Also, I will say the way that the tent was positioned and how it was knocked down wouldn't also make sense with an avalanche. It would have had to come from a certain direction, and the tent was like the opposite direction that it was knocked down than what if an avalanche happened. Like, it didn't come down from the mountain that way; it was crushed that way.
And it's the whole avalanche theory to me just seems like the Project Blue Book UFO
explanation. Some bullshit. No, I totally feel you on that one. No,
like
it really does sound like that.
They want to think that everybody's fucking stupid and it was an avalanche. Well, you got to be right. There's too many things. There's too many other things. It's not an avalanche.
It ain't no avalanche. So, like, some of the theories, some of the things people talk about are, like, these weird things in the sky. And this is one of the photos that I think could possibly just be damage to the photo. But there are people that are like, that's something in the sky.
Something in the sky. So, and let's talk about the something in the sky bullshit.
Maybe right above.
There was the very last.
Yeah, so this is, So, this is part of this. This is known as frame 33, and it's an unknown shot. This picture is super puzzling to people. Some people think it's a UFO. Some people think it's maybe like an explosion happening, and they're taking pictures of it. Some people even allege that you can tell that there's people in this picture. I cannot.
No.
I think that's just a weirdly exposed... So, judging by the circle, the edge on the left here, I think it was just exposed. Like, the camera was damaged and the film was exposed. This might have been the frame that was behind the... But
here's the thing. That makes sense, but the next frame that's after it doesn't make sense then.
Oops, hold on.
Oh my God, it's words. Okay.
I was like,
it is words, but I was just naming all of the different. We can go back there and finish the thing about that.
So this picture comes before the next one.
Yeah.
Hold on.
No, not that one.
Maybe I don't have it. Which one is it? I deleted some of them because when I went through the frame, technically, this was the very last one. This was the very last frame.
No, there's
I came across these.
Those are different pictures, though. Those aren't from
the
camera.
But they were never, I know, but they were never verified. Those are supposed to be the very last this was supposed to be the very last photo. And then those other ones started circulating the internet. So I don't know if maybe that was their official saying so that people weren't looking past that.
There was one more after this. I wish I could send it to you, but I don't have it right here. And I can only... Hold on. Let me see if I can... No, I can't. Oh, maybe I can upload it here. Hold on. I have it.
See, because I mean, it looks like.
But again, this was the last verified picture, so I don't know if
there is one more, and it's like it's a big white bright light in the corner, and it almost looks like there's 3 heads, and that's the picture that also is super because it almost looks like there's 3 of the people's head, and then above it there's like a big bright light going off, and that's supposed to be the last one.
I'd like to see that because, like, from here, this makes total sense that this is like a negative being exposed because you have this octagonal shape in the middle, which is what the closey thing for the camera would have been shaped as. Yeah, sure, the shutter. It's late.
It's late.
That's what it would have looked like, and it just kind of just seems like the camera is breaking open, and you're getting the reflection off the shutter. Thank you, Brie.
But of course, people are like, some people are like, no, it's been analyzed. It's nothing with the camera. This is something that they saw, but it happened so quick that they weren't able to focus in on it. And it did happen in Russia. Oh, Lord.
Okay, here you go. Bam, that's the last picture, allegedly. 34. Ooh. So see how it's like the 3 heads at the bottom and then like the bright light and the distortion?
Yeah.
That one is much more telling to me than the other one. Like this one looks like it could have been something. The other one more looks like it was just like an accidental something.
That's what I'm saying. This is not verified. This one you have is not a verified frame. But that's with the rest of them. So I don't know if, like the rest of them that I added, I don't know if that's just like maybe from the Russian government. Like maybe they don't want people to think, look into those other photos because then, you could put in the, you could think about the heads or like this, like what the hell? If this was a verified photo, then obviously they saw something like could have been a missile or whatever, or even this photo, like that looks like they saw like a fucking UFO in the sky.
Right.
But some of the main theories though are like, oh, they murdered each other. There was a missile or a UFO. It was the Russian Yeti. It was maybe government testing. Aliens or American spies. But what's really interesting here is when you look at the case file from the Russian government, they have that they went out for the expedition, or that they basically have in like the files. They dated it February 6th.
Right.
And so that raised a lot of questions with people saying, why would they say February 6th if it wasn't even until the 20th that the friends and family were alerting everyone and getting the Institute to go out and do a search and rescue? Was it that Russia knew something? Did they know something happened? And so then they're like, writing reports or whatever, like maybe we got to go check it out. We have to search and see what happened so that they could get to it before anyone else did to clean it up and cover it up. So it's either that's the case or maybe it was just a really simple clerical error and they got the date wrong.
Right.
But that was the biggest thing is like, why did the government have papers with saying that they were going to go out there and investigate weeks before they were even supposed to be missing. Yeah. Weeks before they weren't even supposed to be back.
Yeah.
Like, that's so odd. That is beyond odd.
Super sus.
The whole thing is just super weird. The evidence doesn't stack up or make sense. None of the theories fit all of it completely 100%, and it's difficult to pin down what's happened in this case. So, I know one of the theories is like a like the Russian government drink was testing like some sort of like a sound machine that when used upon, it created some sort of panic or something, and that's why they left it. That's why they tried to rush out of the tent, ran away, and then they got far enough away where like their conscience came back, right? But maybe that thing was still on, so every time they tried to get close to that area again, it was like
repelled them away.
Exactly. And so I think that's actually a logical, I think that's one of the more logical theories in my mind. Not saying that I think that's 100% what happened, but the evidence leads me to believe something more in that direction than it does a goddamn avalanche or aliens.
Well, that makes sense why at some moments it makes sense what they're doing, and other moments it makes no sense. Because then you have those moments of actual clarity, and then you have moments of insanity and not thinking straight and making bad decisions. And then all of a sudden they're making smart decisions, like they are kicking into survival mode. And then other instances where it looks like they're trying to kill themselves. Exactly. So that actually makes total sense. With the Russian Bigfoot, though, this is that frame where it comes from.
When they said, remember,
you will see it everywhere.
So they said it was a Yeti. It's a Yeti. They call it because it's in the snow.
Which I don't believe whatsoever. I think it just looks like one of them playing out there.
I was like, it looks like one of them, far away with like maybe like
fucking around.
Their hood on and shit. Yeah.
But that was mentioned in the Russian report.
Oh yeah, do that.
So do that.
Do that.
So
I'm running out of liquor.
This is the OG, and then this is of course the transcript, so we can actually read it. But that is one of the things. In recent years, there's been a heated debate about the existence of Yeti. And in recent reports, Yeti lives in the northern Ural near Mount Torten. So it seems as if that was a theory that they were playing around with.
Right. Yeah.
I think that they threw so many theories at this, and I think, again, it's because none of them quite fit properly. And then I think you have stuff like this. We have no idea whether or not these photos are confirmed, but it's alleged that these photos also came from their camera roll. It's also said that one of the cameras and one of the diaries went completely missing from the tent after it was brought back to the police station. And so who's not to say that there's evidence that's still just not known out there?
And that was from one of the higher ranking police officers.
Police officers who said that. And you also have to remember, too, that there was two separate investigations that happened. There was the police investigation, and then there was a KBG investigation. Yeah. You don't hear anything about the KBG investigation. You only hear about the police investigation.
Nope. And just to fill in for Bobby here for a second.
For lots of people, it seems like we got some late. Someone's late to the class.
You missed it.
Y'all are way late.
I'm gonna do a movie recommendation.
Oh.
Since Bobby's not here,
I think I know what it is.
Devil's Pass.
Mm-hmm.
I almost watched it, and then I was like, I'll wait till after. I didn't want to get confused with what was in my brain, because I did see the trailer, and they do have
really
they do have there's weird aliens or like underground creature things, and
there's
that's
a little
of course
bit of
unconfirmed.
time travel kind of thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
But if you're a big fan of the Dyatlov Pass and you like scary movies, check out Devil's Pass. It's on. I'm gonna stop.
I'm gonna tell you that
until these motherfuckers start.
Yes, I know, right?
So I don't know where it is. I was going to watch it. My Apple TV told me that no, not on Amazon Prime, not for free. At least you'd have to rent it. So I could rent it, or I could try it for free on AMC. Then I have to download the AMC. I have to download the AMC app, and then there's probably not going to have any cuss words in it. They might cut some scenes. I'm not into that.
Okay, I really want to talk about this photo because this, I believe, is one of. Yeah. Okay. So there's many things that go on to something like this. So you have one of the alleged theories is that it was some sort of military test, right? That they were testing maybe atomic bombs, and that's why they ran out of the tent. All the things that happened. The reason that it took so long for them to try to get back to their tent is because there was the fallout from whatever they were testing, and so that's why it was like they didn't quite have their bearing because there was like nuclear shit falling down and things like that. And so that's one of the alleged things that happened. Another one is stating, like you were talking about, the whole alien shit. And what's interesting about that is that there's other people in that area who have witnessed orange orbs on top of this mountain pass before. And it's also happened after this incident as well, that people have seen these orbs. But there is a Soviet parachute mine exercise that actually is very similar to what these people are seeing. And so I think that might be a huge explanation for the orange orbs or things like that, because I don't necessarily think the group ever alleged that they ever saw anything weird in the sky. It was just other people's stories, assumptions of the area, and then the weird pictures that happened to be at the end of their camera roll, and then all these other pictures that came out alleging that was part of their camera roll. But none of that stuff was in any of their journals or the journals that we had witnessed had any of we were seeing weird things in the sky.
No, not at all. The last journal entry is the 31st of January, before any of this happened.
Yeah.
But I mean, it makes sense to me if they heard something crazy, and that's why they got out. Maybe they wanted to climb up on top of the tree to see what was happening, and maybe that's why they weren't totally closed, because they thought we'll be right back. However, why would they have the urgency to cut from outside from inside the tent?
Yeah, that's always, it's those small details, because it's easy to say these people died, they did this, but when you start piecing together these little details, and you have pictures like this, and you have their journal entries, and you have them building shelters away from their tent that they, for whatever reason, ran away from.
That everything they needed to survive was inside of.
Was in there. They were like, no, you know what? I'm going to go half a mile away and dig a hole 12 feet deep into the snow and have a cedar hut.
Which also proves, I'm glad that you said that, which also proves that they even had the energy to dig a hole. Exactly. And they had the thought process of how to do it. And if you look at those pictures, if you guys wanted me to go back, if we looked at those pictures, it looks fucking clean. They did a clean ass job. They didn't just a couple shovels in and they don't have a shovel. How did that even happen? So they were thinking with an engineer mind. In my opinion,
survivor people, they were using what they could to survive. But then there's these weird moments of stuff that doesn't make sense, and it's insane. Another theory that they have is maybe the military stumbled upon them, and maybe a military officer entered inside the tent, scared the shit out of them, ripped the tent open from the inside, pushed them out, ripped it from the inside to kind of ruin it, and then sent them along their way. And that's why they have this marching path of them going. And then when they got far enough away, the soldiers were like, all right, go fend for yourself, have fun. And then whatever had happened out in the wilderness happened in the wilderness.
Yeah, but you would still around the tent have
the theory.
You would have the footprints coming in, which did not exist.
And that's a thing that didn't exist, exactly. So you have, it's a lot of weird back and forth of this. This starts to make sense, but then when you continue down that one theory, it all falls apart. Yeah. And it's like that with everything. No matter what theory you put on this, you cannot pin it down to what makes sense with what's out there. But I also think that we don't have the full picture.
No, we absolutely do not. They're hiding a million things because that's how Russia does.
And I do want to say real quick too, in the chat, we do have a poll for you guys to vote for the fact or sci-fi.
Yes.
Do you guys fact, sci-fi, or middle bitch the government story of it being an avalanche? That's the official, what they say.
Yep, that's
you know what?
Current official story.
I'm thinking, I know that you started the episode off with it can't be aliens.
Oh.
And I don't think aliens would do this, but I know that there has to be evil aliens out there, right? Because there's evil
for sure.
people.
Yeah. I mean, evil's a earth word, but okay. Yeah, go ahead.
It is, but I mean, we have evil people, so there has to be other aliens with ill intent or maybe being a bit more brutal. Maybe that. Okay. So, you know how sometimes also Bigfoot comes with UFOs?
Yeah.
So maybe it was like a
Grays,
combination. Yeah. Like, what if aliens were testing a weird hybrid Bigfoot thing that they created?
Mm.
They're cruising around Russia.
Great.
They see these poor people.
I'm out of everything.
They just fuck them up. So then they like cause havoc. They drop the Bigfoot to see what the Bigfoot can do. Mm-hmm. And he slowly just like fucks with them and like throws them against trees or.
It almost reminds me of Predator because a new Predator movie is about to come out.
It reminds me of like literally like a Hollywood movie. I couldn't agree more with you. It's like it's like some type of like a government weird mutant that they made that accidentally escaped in these mountains and then went and literally terrorized these fucking people.
Like there's no footprints. They couldn't see what was attacking them. So it was like the Predator, but it was up in the trees and it was.
Okay, wait, hold on. What if they're in their tent, right? Mm-hmm. They're like winding down. Maybe they're playing Spin the Bottle. Get a little touchy-feely. It's a great night.
Spin the Bottle with 8 guys and 1 girl.
2 girls.
There was 2?
Yeah. Don't forget the one that you said could peel the potatoes like with her hands.
With her fingers,
with her nails.
Not to mention, one of them actually dated the other one before. So they like already had a fling. So it's kind of like, we've done this before. Let's do it again.
They just had a world war.
So like, what if they're just in there having a great old time, and all of a sudden they hear like, rah! They hear like these crazy noises, and they're boom, 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 and then they're like, we gotta get out of here. They cut the tent, they run, and then they're like, oh, nothing's there anymore. But then he is still there. So some of them keep running because like fight or flight. Some of them just keep running way too far. I mean, I don't know. I'm just fucking spitballing here.
You're spitballing. Do you have more slides? Do you have more slides? I feel like
no. I'll get rid of this. Yeah.
Okay, so here's the thing. Okay. So I'm going to tell you guys what I'm leaning towards theory-wise when it comes to this.
Well, do we want to start our factor sci-fi?
We'll factor sci-fi last.
Okay.
Because I feel like we're all going to do the same thing with our factor sci-fi, but we're more talking about like what we think kind of happened. So like my idea, I really like the idea of like the sound weapon being some version of what happened. And if you look at all the terrain in the area, it seems like at some point the 5 and the 4 kind of separate and they go in different directions. Some of them seem to be going up towards the trees to get away from it, and the other ones tend to go down towards the river. When you get down to the river, there was actually like a big ravine area that if it was dark and it was snowy, that they probably could have fallen off of, which might have accounted for some of the injuries that they had. So I think that is a lot less fantastical than we want it to be. When I originally heard the story, I was really like, it's like some Bigfoot cryptid weird shit. But now the more and more I look over this evidence, as much as I want it to be spectacular, I think that it's probably just much more mundane than we want it to be. But I don't think that it was necessarily the avalanche theory. I think that there was something nefarious going on, but not as crazy as we think it is. Like I said, the idea of them like trying to get back to the tent and the machine still being on, and so they go crazy again and like they rip out their own eyeballs or shit like that. Like that's very much things that could happen.
Like
or maybe the lady
Horizon type shit.
Or maybe
but the lady still is crazy and fantastical though. Well, that is not mundane. Or
maybe the lady whose tongue was ripped off when she fell off the cliff, when she hit the ground, she bit her tongue off. You know, like I think that there could be more logical. Listen, there's been cases where people are smacked on the back of the head so hard that their eyeballs come out.
It's true.
Okay,
and they were by a river, and let's say that maybe they fell in the
soft
river
tissue would still be there. You'd have like a dangling fucking vein.
I'm just saying, I feel like there could be more of a mundane reason for a lot of these. Not saying that nothing nefarious happened originally, because I do think that something weird was the thing to get them out of the tent, because none of that makes sense. But I think necessarily some of their injuries are probably not as mystical and crazy as we think that they are.
I'm so mad at you for that.
That's okay. That's all right. Why don't you go ahead and tell me your opinion then?
Yeah.
I think that was a fucking Bigfoot. I think that they were drunk in that tent. They were getting frisky with each other, which is why they forgot they probably had a zipper for the tent. I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I can be a little bit like hulky and like messy with things, especially I hear it's an ADD thing too, where like even if with you're opening up a box, instead of opening up the right way, I just tear.
You just
Sometimes if things don't fit, I'm gonna force it to fit and I'll probably break it, but I do it anyway and I'll never do it any other way. So what if like in that fight or flight moment, and maybe under the influence, because who goes on a hike that long without bringing any whiskey?
Not just under the influence, but if you were genuinely terrified of something, your flight or fight response kicks in. So if you were genuinely something that they maybe had never heard before, explosions or something,
probably.
You don't have. They were
look
just
for the zipper,
which to be fair, is almost looks like what's happening with all of the different cuts and stuff. Like they said, there were instances where it looked like they had went to go stab it and it didn't go through, and they moved on to another area, and there were these cuts all throughout the inside of the tent like that. So it seemed like it was multiple of them trying to get out. So obviously, to me, whether it's they had alcohol with them or it was just they were so genuinely terrified, I think that those are both absolute possibilities for not using the zipper.
Well, they were Russian. They had alcohol.
Great point. Not whiskey, vodka.
All right, Tony.
So I'm going to say that's probably a fact, and there's no way it is mundane.
Okay, go ahead, Tony. What do you think?
Okay, so like we kind of hinted at, I think every time we look into any aspect of this story, it just gets weirder. And weirder. Like, and I can take whatever background that I have, and it just goes, okay, so they obviously weren't attacked by bears because at this point in time, this time of the year, they're hibernating. So it's not bears. The lights could actually be attributed to maybe if there was like a strong electromagnetic storm, that it was the northern lights peeking down further than normal.
I was going to say, I don't know if that...
But the craziest part about it is
the Aurora Borealis
actually happened where they cut out of their own tent and did. When you look at it from the surface, it's like, okay, a bunch of people went hiking out into the wilderness and died. But when you look at it, you're like, okay, so why are there no prints coming in? And one of the explanations is that there's the stove / heating unit that the inventor made. They got poisoning from the natural gas. And it caused them to get kind of like
confused and shit. Yeah.
And then they just ran out of the tent.
Oh, that's a great one.
It's Dyatlov's fault.
That would only last for so
long. Yeah. By the time they would, but then that also maybe kind of makes sense with the idea of them trying to get back. So that, and like I said, something happened while they were out there where they got confused, they got separated. Maybe some of them stumbled down, and then they tried to find each other. They got up to the tree, they saw where they were trying to assimilate, but maybe just the conditions got just so windy and bad. Remember, they were saying it was so windy in that area that the snow was falling off the trees, making it look like it was snowing.
Yeah, but that doesn't explain the rib fractures, the missing eyes. There's nothing out there. There's no animals out there that are eating off of dead carcasses. I mean, no, there just isn't. It's a winter wasteland. There's nothing out there. So that's where it gets really weird, right? Because you can take all these really good ideas, and then when you take the condition that the bodies were in, and these other things, and you're just like, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I feel like the Mansi tribe would have been able to either like maybe they've gone through the same thing, or they would have been able to account for some of the things that they did when they were interviewed, because they live in that area.
Yeah, and they were found in a place that tribe wouldn't even go to.
Again, because they were terrified of that area. Exactly.
Yeah, they were like, fuck that. We're not going over there. That's like rich people going downtown.
let's fact our sci-fi. I'll get to our poll before we get to our answers. So this is actually interesting. 17% said fact that they believed the avalanche. 35% said sci-fi, and 47% middle bitched it.
Oh, shit.
I know.
Of all the things, the avalanche. But you guys, did you remember in the beginning though that there were footprints and an avalanche would have wiped that away, or it would have broken all of the skis and the stakes that were holding their tent down? Wouldn't that have had any effect and not still be standing in like perfect condition? Mm-hmm. I think the footprints are probably the biggest thing. If there's an avalanche, you're not going to see a motherfucking footprint. That's absolutely absurd.
Nope.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
So what do you say? What do you say to the theory, Brie? Fact or sci-fi?
It's absolutely sci-fi that it is a avalanche. And I feel like even most of the world agreed with that when Russia came out with that explanation. A lot of people were like,
why the fuck you lying?
Yeah, for sure.
I think we all think this one's a sci-fi. Super hard.
Logan, you can vote again. You can vote again.
Yeah, that's fine.
Aw, yeah.
This one's a weird one, and I hope that people continue to look into it and new stuff and discoveries are found, because I really would love the answer. I don't think there will be either, but I would love it if there was. It's such a weird fucking case.
70 years ago.
Oh, yeah, that's a long time. I watched, I think it was 2 hours or 2.5. I don't remember. I watched a 2-hour documentary on it, and it was with one of the sisters of one of the group members. And so she gave a lot of insight into who the people were and their background. And I wish I could remember who it was, but they were talking about how in one of the expeditions that they had done before, that he like stood up to a bear with his bare hands, and so everyone was like, oh wow, he's so brave, because he was like, get out of here, and then the bear was like, and ran away.
He said, Volkswagen.
And they're with those people, so I don't think it was a bear. You didn't see me. I didn't leave my house today, unless you saw me take out the trash. And there was just a lot of detail in that documentary, and I really liked it. They brought up like every single possible thing and investigating into the people and their backgrounds. And so that was really cool to see. But I feel like that was probably the most research that anyone has done on the topic. Like, he went to Russia and he walked Dyatlov Pass with people. So he like did really deep investigative journalism there, and he was left with the same thing. What the fuck? Almost more questions than answers at this point. Yeah, the more that he looked into it, there were more questions than just a simple line of an answer. So this is like something I feel like we need someone to remote view this situation.
Ooh. I agree.
Yep.
I agree. Well, I think that was, listen, Dyatlov Pass is one of my favorites. I thank you guys for joining us today for it.
Yeah.
Wait, what were your guys' things? You guys also sci-fi'd or no?
Yeah, we sci-fi'd.
Okay.
Cool. Tony, do you have anything going on this week for the Bottled Water podcast?
No.
Okay, perfect.
I'm going to be on call for the next week until I start my new job. So.
Gotcha. Well, you know what? If you're not busy tomorrow, maybe me and Bree are thinking about having a little pop-up stream. So maybe you'll be around. You can come hang.
Hopefully.
Yeah, we should think about that. We might do a blood ritual tomorrow. We'll see.
Yeah, we might do a blood ritual tomorrow. So we'll see if you guys are around.
We got to get rid of the trolls.
We got to get rid of some negative energy.
Yeah, so you guys also pay attention to who you're following on Twitter. Yes. Someone took our old Twitter
name and like copied us, although they ended up changing it all back to something else, to some weird thing that I don't understand what it's a reference to. Yeah. But also everybody, Tony, congratulations. He got a new job. He's moving on up. And if you guys want, at the very top of the chat, you can scroll up and donate to his Buy Me a Coffee to support him in his new job.
Yeah.
So
And
blood
then
ritual.
Thursday,
Thursday.
possibly a blood ritual tomorrow. I think it just depends on if someone is still in the hospital or not.
Yeah, how the day's going.
Right.
And then Thursday, we have Emmett from UFO Bros is going to come back on Butt Stuff with us. And I don't know if we have a rewind yet, to be honest.
I don't know if we have one on Friday. We'll keep you posted on that one.
We will.
But we do have
Definitely.
the next few Bobby's Cryptid Corners and Butt Stuffs posted, so you guys can check out what we have coming up for the next few weeks. So we hope you guys loved all the new format. Say hello, you all. Hello, Crowley. Hello, Enzo.
Love you.
Hello,
Love you guys.
Logan.
Guys have no idea how hard it is to not talk about the comments because I
Yeah.
can still see them. I wish that there was a way to totally hide. I guess there is. I could pop you guys out. I didn't think about that. But it is hard. I hope you guys don't think we're ignoring you. We are not.
Yeah,
we're
we're
starring
not.
and we're coming to it at the end because, like, obviously we get distracted really fucking easily.
Super.
Yeah.
And if we just keep looking at your guys' comments, the whole show will be 5 hours long, and we will just literally.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Talk to
You
you
guys
guys.
would have all left by now anyway.
But if you guys
Yeah.
want to, like we said, tomorrow we are going to be doing hopefully maybe a blood ritual. And that one is literally us just interacting with you guys and comments and stuff. So if you guys want that, come for that. We will see you guys next week for the next Bobby's Cryptid
Absolutely.
Corner. Tuesdays are for the motherfucking cryptids. Bye, y'all.
Every
Fuck
Tuesday.
yeah. Hell yeah.